I learned later that the doctors had less than 1 hour to save my life. But that morning began with me lying unconscious on a table inside the trauma wing of MUSC. I remember none of it. Only what they told me afterward, how my daughter, Lydia Carver Reed, answered the hospital's call from a luxury spa across town. "Mrs. Reed, your mother needs emergency surgery," the nurse had said, holding the phone with both hands because they were shaking. And Lydia's voice, calm, bored, almost irritated, floated through the speaker. "If she dies, let me know. I'm not signing anything." The staff stared at one another, stunned. Someone hit the record button on the hospital line. A surgeon muttered, "Is this really her daughter?" Another whispered that they needed another guardian immediately before the window closed. When I finally woke many days later, with tubes down my throat and the weight of survival pressing against my ribs, I saw a note clipped to the foot of my chart. 2 words written in thick black marker. New guardian. The name beneath it was not Lydia's. It was the moment I realized the world had shifted without me. But before any of that, there was Easter morning in Charleston. I woke early, the way I always did, to prepare the meal for the family party I hosted every year. I was 68, and I still like to do things myself: set the table, season the ham, arrange the flowers from the small garden behind my house in West Ashley. I tried to pretend it still felt like a celebration. Lydia walked into my kitchen with her sunglasses still on. "You should really think about selling this place." "Mom, it's too much for you. Colin already talked to a realtor." She said it like it was a favor, not a threat. I stirred the pot in silence. At the time, I told myself she was stressed, busy, overwhelmed, anything but cruel. I wanted to believe she still cared. Standing there, spoon in hand, I felt the first uneasy crack run through something I had relied on my whole life. I just did not recognize it for what it was. If I had, maybe the rest of the day would have looked very different. Easter afternoon should have felt warm, familiar, comforting. Instead, everything inside my old home in West Ashley sat under a layer of tension so thin it felt like it might split if anyone breathed too hard. I carried a tray of rolls into the dining room just as Lydia walked past, her eyes sweeping over the walls like she was inspecting damage. "This place is such dead weight." "Mom," she said, tapping a chipped corner of paint, "you could sell it and live somewhere manageable. Colin found listings already." Colin, standing behind her, didn't even bother lowering his voice. "You could get at least $200,000 for this lot alone." I forced a smile and set the tray down. "It's my home, not a stock portfolio." Noah slipped into the room, shoulders hunched. "Grandma worked hard for this house," he murmured, barely above a whisper. Lydia shot him a sharp look. "No one asked for your opinion." Noah's face dropped. He went quiet again. Dinner moved in slow circles. Small talk, tension, forced cheer. Every sentence Lydia spoke had an edge. Every silence from Colin felt like judgment. I kept reminding myself that it was Easter, that families were supposed to come together, but something in me felt unsettled. After dessert, I walked toward the hallway to fetch more plates when I heard Lydia's voice behind the door to the study. "Once Mom's out of the way, the realtor can list the house within 2 weeks." She whispered, "I already spoke with him." "Colin, this is our chance." I froze, breath caught in my chest. Colin answered softly, "Just make sure she doesn't delay things. We need that sale." My hand tightened around the doorknob. I felt something inside me crack, sharp and quiet. I stepped back before they could hear me, smoothing my face as if nothing had happened. When Lydia returned to the kitchen later, she announced, "We're leaving early tomorrow, spa day. You should come. Mom, might do you good." I nodded without trusting my voice. I did not know that the words I overheard would take root and bloom into something far darker before the next sunrise. Lydia insisted on driving. "We need to get home early," she said as she tossed her spa brochure into the console. "Appointments start at 9. I am not missing the package we paid for." I climbed into the back seat beside Noah. His shoulders were tense, his eyes fixed on the window. The air felt thick. Like all the things unspoken at dinner were wedged between us. As soon as Lydia merged onto I-26, Colin opened the conversation I dreaded. "We should move fast on selling your mother's place," he said. "Spring buyers are aggressive." Noah spoke before I could. "You're talking like she's not even in the car." Lydia shot him a glare through the rearview mirror. "Stay out of adult matters. This is family responsibility." "It is family," Noah whispered. "And you're treating her like a problem." "Enough," Lydia snapped. "Mom knows she can't maintain that house forever. We are doing her a favor." I folded my hands in my lap, holding in the sting of her words. Before I could respond, thunder cracked overhead. Rain slammed against the windshield so hard the wipers barely kept up. Colin muttered, "Visibility's dropping fast. Slow down, Lydia. I know how to drive," she snapped, pressing her lips tight. The storm intensified, a sheet of water pouring over us, headlights blurred, cars braked suddenly. Then everything happened at once. A pickup truck in the next lane swerved, tires losing grip. Noah yelled, "Mom, watch out!" The truck spun sideways. Metal screeched as it hydroplaned straight into our lane. Lydia screamed and jerked the wheel. But there was no space, no traction, no time. The impact crushed the entire left side of the car. Pain shot through my body so violently I couldn't breathe. The world flipped 1, 2 times before everything stopped with a jolt that rattled my teeth. Voices echoed. Sirens wailed somewhere far away. Someone shouted, "We've got an older female with head trauma." Pulse dropping. Hands grabbed at me, cutting through fabric. A voice near my ear said, "She has internal bleeding, skull impact. We need consent for surgery now." The world dimmed. The last thing I heard before everything went black was a medic shouting for them to contact my next of kin. They told me later that the trauma bay was a blur of shouting and blood and rushing hands, but one moment stood out so sharply that everyone in the room remembered it the same way. "Her pressure is dropping." A doctor ordered, "We need consent for emergency surgery now. Call her daughter again." A nurse with tired eyes grabbed my phone, scrolled to Lydia's contact, and hit FaceTime. The screen lit up with soft, yellow spa lighting and the sound of slow music humming in the background. Lydia appeared wearing a white robe, her hair wrapped in a towel. "What now?" she said sharply. "I'm in the middle of a treatment, Mrs. Reed," the nurse said, angling the camera toward my blood-smeared face. "The oxygen mask, the tubes. Your mother has life-threatening injuries. She is bleeding internally and has a skull impact. We need your consent immediately to move her into surgery." Lydia stared for a beat, then sighed as if she had been asked to park her car farther away. "If she dies, let me know," she said. "I am not signing anything." The room went silent. Even the machines seemed to pause. Colin appeared in the background, rubbing his temples. "Lydia, maybe you should—" "No," she snapped. "We paid for the full day. I am not driving all the way downtown for this." Noah's voice cut in faintly from behind them. "Mom, please, she needs help." Lydia muted him with a single gesture. The nurse's hands trembled. A surgeon muttered, "Record this." Another doctor whispered, "This is elder neglect. Activate the protocol." The nurse tried again. "Mrs. Reed, your mother will not survive without this surgery." Lydia rolled her eyes. "Call someone else. I cannot deal with this right now." And she hung up. The nurse stared at the blank screen for a second before it lit again. An unread text popped up from Lydia Crisis. Might solve everything. Someone swore under their breath. A resident said, "Check the next emergency contact." The nurse scrolled, stopped, and said softly, "Harold Brooks." The neighbor, a doctor, asked. "Widower, lives next door." The nurse replied, "Should I call?" They did, and Harold answered before the first ring finished. They told me Harold Brooks was cleaning his fishing gear when the hospital called just another quiet evening in his small house next door to mine on James Island. He had known me for more than 20 years. We shared fences, cups of coffee, and stories of the spouses we each lost. Nothing dramatic, just the gentle loyalty of neighbors who became something closer than family without ever naming it. When the phone rang, he answered with a distracted, "Harold speaking." The nurse's voice came fast. "Mr. Brooks, Evelyn Carver has been in a severe accident. You are listed as her secondary emergency contact. We need someone here immediately to sign for life-saving surgery." Harold did not ask for details. He did not ask how it happened. According to the nurse, he said one thing, "I'm on my way," and the line went dead. He drove through the Charleston storm with the wipers on full speed, water hammering the windshield so violently he could barely see. By the time he burst through the hospital doors, he was soaked from boots to collar. He threw his hands onto the counter. "I'm Harold Brooks. Evelyn Carver is my neighbor. Tell me where to sign." The doctor closest to him exhaled with relief. "She needs surgery now." A nurse handed him the forms. His signature scratched across the page. His hand shaking, his clothes dripping onto the floor. She whispered under her breath, "At least someone cares." As they rushed me toward the operating room, an older woman in a navy blazer entered the trauma bay. She introduced herself quietly as Grace Donovan, elder law attorney. Someone had alerted her after the recorded call. Grace listened to the replay, Lydia's calm voice, the refusal, the text message that followed. Her jaw tightened. "This qualifies for immediate action." She said, "I am filing for emergency guardianship." She worked beside the nurses, gathering witness statements, documenting every detail. Within 1 hour, she was on a call with a night judge, presenting the evidence. The recording alone made the decision simple. Approved. The judge said, "Effective immediately." My chart was updated. A new name under Guardian Harold Brooks. I remained unconscious, unaware of any of it. Harold pulled a chair to my bedside and sat there through the storm, his soaked clothes drying slowly in the warm hospital air, his hands folded, refusing to leave until someone told him I was safe. When I finally surfaced from the dark, it felt like rising through heavy water. My eyes opened in slow, painful inches, and the world came into focus in pieces, the hiss of machines, the sting in my throat, the faint antiseptic smell that clung to everything. Then a face leaned into view. Evelyn Eve. "Can you hear me?" It was Harold Brooks. His voice rough, his eyes red like he had not slept in days. The moment he saw me blink, his hand closed around mine with a grip that trembled. "You're back," he whispered. "Thank God. You're back." A nurse hurried over. "Mrs. Carver, you're in the ICU at MUSC. You've been unconscious for quite a while." She lifted the chart at the foot of my bed so I could read it. My breath caught when I saw the words written there in bold black ink. Legal Guardian Harold Brooks. My eyes blurred. I tried to speak, but only a rasp came out. Harold leaned closer. "It's all right. I'm here. I have you." Grace Donovan entered quietly, carrying a thin folder and wearing an expression meant to soften bad news. "Mrs. Carver, I know you just woke up, but you need to understand what happened while you were under." Harold's hand tightened slightly around mine. Grace pulled up a chair. The hospital contacted your daughter for surgery consent. She refused. They recorded her call. She also attempted to access your bank account while you were in critical care. My chest tightened. I felt the words before I could fully process them. Lydia did that. Grace nodded gently. Yes, and we have evidence. Lydia also sent a message saying your situation might solve everything. Because of that, a judge-approved emergency guardianship. Harold stepped in immediately. Harold lowered his head, almost apologetic. I just did what needed doing. Eve, Grace continued. There's something else. Noah contacted Harold privately. He sent screenshots of his mother mocking your accident to her friends. Noah wanted us to know the full truth. The room felt heavier than the machines around me. I turned to Harold, my voice thin and broken. Please don't let her decide my life anymore. I won't, he said, rubbing my hand with his thumb. Not ever again. The machines kept humming, steady and rhythmic, as if marking the start of something neither of us had expected. Harold helped me into his bungalow on James Island, with the kind of care people reserve for something fragile, something breakable. I leaned on him as we crossed the threshold, my legs weak, my ribs aching from every breath. I fixed up the back room for you, he said quietly. When he pushed open the door, I had to hold the frame to steady myself. Seashell curtains fluttered slightly from the ceiling fan. Soft blankets were stacked neatly at the end of the bed. On the nightstand sat an old photo of me from a neighborhood cookout laughing, holding a plate of shrimp and grits. I remembered that day. I had not known he took the picture. You did all this for me. My voice cracked more than I meant it to. Harold rubbed the back of his neck. You deserve somewhere that feels safe, Eve. Physical therapy started the next morning. A therapist came twice a week. But Harold was the one who stood beside me between sessions, bracing my elbow when my legs wobbled, encouraging me each time my breath hitched. Slow and steady, he murmured as I gripped the walker. I feel like a newborn deer. I muttered. He chuckled softly, a determined one. By the 5th day, I managed 8 steps without collapsing. I felt a spark of pride until my phone buzzed on the dresser. Lydia's name flashed across the screen. For a heartbeat. I hoped she had changed, that she cared, that she had something human left to give. The message said, "Can you finally sign the transfer papers?" Now, my stomach dropped. Harold saw the look on my face and took the phone gently from my hand, placing it face down. You don't need that right now, he said, voice low and firm. That evening, a soft knock sounded at the door. Noah stepped inside, his shoulders shaking slightly. Grandma, I'm sorry, he whispered. Mom won't stop lying. I want to tell the judge everything. I want them to know what she really said. I pulled him into a gentle hug despite the pain in my ribs. Thank you, sweetheart. It takes courage to tell the truth. The marsh outside hummed softly, a calm rhythm I had not felt in years. Each step I took, each breath I managed, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself Lydia had tried to erase. The Charleston County Judicial Center felt colder than the hospital ever had. Harold walked beside me, steadying my arm as we entered the courtroom. I could take a few steps without the walker now, but every one of them carried the weight of everything Lydia had done. Lydia arrived moments later, hair unbrushed, eyes swollen, anger sharp as a blade. Colin kept his distance from her, jaw tight, hands shoved into his pockets. Noah trailed behind them, pale and nervous. But he nodded when he saw me. Grace Donovan placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. We're ready, Mrs. Carver. The judge entered. Stern and composed, we are here to determine guardianship, financial access, and possible elder neglect in the matter of Evelyn Carver. Grace stood. Your Honor, the evidence will show not only neglect, but intent. She began with the recording. Lydia's voice filled the room. "If she dies, let me know. I am not signing anything." A few people in the gallery gasped. Lydia crossed her arms tightly, refusing to look up. Grace continued calmly. "During Mrs. Carver's surgery, Ms. Carver Reed attempted 3 times to access her mother's bank account. Here are the timestamps." She handed over the documents. Colin closed his eyes like he wanted to disappear. "And finally, Your Honor," Grace said, lifting her tablet, "messages recovered from Ms. Carver Reed's group chats." Noah's hands shook as he stood. "I sent those," he said. "My mom didn't care what happened to her. She laughed about it. She said awful things." The judge gestured. "Show the messages." The screen displayed Lydia's words in black and white. Her death would solve everything. Lydia lurched forward. Those were jokes. People joke when there's silence. The judge snapped. "There is nothing humorous here." Noah stepped into the witness box, voice breaking, but honest. She wanted the house. She said Grandma was a burden. I could not stay quiet anymore. When it was my turn, Harold helped me stand. I gripped the railing and kept my voice steady. "My daughter abandoned me on a table when I was dying. She chose a spa appointment over my life. I do not want her near my decisions, my money, or my future. I want peace. And Harold gave me that when she would not." The judge looked toward Lydia, then Harold, then back to me. "Guardianship of Evelyn Carver is permanently granted to Harold Brooks. All financial access for Ms. Carver Reed is revoked indefinitely. Further investigation into exploitation will proceed." Lydia's face crumpled. She whispered, "You cannot do this to me." The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. "No, Ms. Carver Reed, you did this to yourself." Harold squeezed my hand as they adjourned. The hallway filled with murmurs as we stepped outside, and the sun broke through the clouds over Charleston. Revenge did not always need shouting. Sometimes it arrived quietly, in the simple truth finally laid bare for everyone to see. Freedom did not arrive with fireworks or celebration. It came quietly, as if the weight I had carried for decades finally slid off my shoulders. A week after the ruling, the transcript from the courtroom leaked online. Lydia's recorded words spread through her workplace like wildfire. By the next morning, her supervisor called her into the office and placed a folder on the desk. "We cannot have someone in a leadership position who refused life-saving consent for her own mother," he said flatly. Lydia tried to argue, but the decision was final. She was escorted out of the building carrying a cardboard box with shaking hands. Colin separated from her, publicly, within days. He held a brief press conference outside his office downtown. "My wife made choices that do not reflect my values." He said, "I am taking necessary steps to protect my business and my future." He withdrew every dollar from their joint accounts and moved into a condo overlooking the harbor. Lydia went home to an eviction notice taped to the door. She begged the landlord for more time, but he had already read the transcript. He simply pointed toward the parking lot and shut the door behind her. Her reputation collapsed faster than she ever imagined. People whispered. Friends blocked her. No one wanted to hire a woman whose cruelty had been documented in legal records. She drifted from motel to motel, exactly what she had once tried to make me disposable. Meanwhile, my life settled into a steady, gentle rhythm. Harold and I built a routine by the Marsh morning coffee. Slow walks as my hips strengthened. Evenings sitting on the porch as the tide rolled in. He never treated me like a burden. He treated me like someone worth choosing. Grace helped me place my home into a trust. The proceeds divided between Noah and a fund for elder abuse survivors. When Lydia tried to contest it, the judge laughed once and dismissed her with a wave. "She has no standing here," he said, and the gavel struck before she could open her mouth. A month later, I updated my will. The ink on the page felt warm under my hand. to the man who saved me when blood refused to. Harold looked at the line and tried to hide the way his eyes filled. You didn't have to do that. Eve, I squeezed his hand, you did not have to save my life to either. That evening, as we watched the sky turn gold over the marsh, I recorded a short message for my viewers. If my story touched you, tap like, leave a comment, or subscribe. Someone out there needs to hear this. I closed the camera and leaned back in my chair. The world felt lighter than it had in years. Some families are born, some are chosen, and sometimes choosing you costs someone everything.